No Cap Real Talk. You hear us, we reflect you. We talk controversial topics. We discuss equity, inclusion, mental health, feminism, LGBTQIA, and everything beyond and in between. Get involved. Get to the real talk. No cap.
Thank you for tuning in with us for Real Talk, No Cap. I'm Royanne Johnson, the Director of Counseling Services here at Owens Community College, and I am here today with the wonderful, my esteemed colleague and friend,
Majean Eugene, Transformation Coach.
And today we are going to be talking about companies that care for the month of March as a mental wellness approach. We want to be informative, we want to be inclusive, and always the Real Talk, No Cap. I want to take a moment to thank my production engineer, Rob Thomas, here at Outcast OCCR, Owens Community College Radio. Thank you for listening, everyone. So let's get into the real talk.
Yes.
Companies that care. What's important to know?
Oh, man. This takes me back personally to when I first started working in my life, right? Particularly when I was teaching, and I started to really tune into what I'm not interested in the workplace. And what's killing me. I mean, literally, I came back to work at one point, and there were no students because everyone's like, that job is so hard because of the kids. No, it's hard because of companies that don't care.
Very true.
Right?
Yes.
So no matter what you are doing, it's do you feel well? Like when I come here to Owens, no matter what I've got going on here for the day, I'm so excited. And this morning I was like, I'm so happy to go. It's like a treat, right? When I'm going into a classroom to speak with kids, it's like a treat. I like peer into classrooms, like hopefully I don't look like a stalker, but it's such a delicious experience, right?
Yes.
So, and I love what I do, but even if I'm not doing all of the things that I love, I'm happy to be there. I'm not in danger. That's so important. And it became important to me as I was experiencing these awful things, this toxic culture. And it wasn't necessarily toxic against me, the wild one at work who, if you were caught talking to me, you would be on the radar list. So everyone spoke to me in secret, it was like, don't. And then it culminated to the point where in this one school, the counselor was taken away by the police. The counselor who was not a toxic person, but this toxic culture got to everyone. And it was so offensive against children. It was so degrading to children in the inner city. Like, you need to be treated like this because, otherwise, if we don't do this for you, if we don't engage with you in this domineering, militant, authoritative, extract the love, extract the respect,
Extract the nurturance,
precisely. And so it became where, one day I even found myself just yelling at this kid, and I look back on that all the time because I'm like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, what happened?
Absolutely.
And so it's imperative. It's not a nice thing. It's an absolute imperative.
Yes. And it's such an important topic to bring up. To speak to that, I want to talk about how we can erase that toxic culture in the settings within where we work. Mm-hmm. I love that you mentioned Owens and that it is a treat to be here. It is a treat to be here on campus. I hope you all out there feel that it's also a treat. Let's mention some other companies that care. And again, the Googles and the internets can help you if you just do a quick search.
Yep.
Some of the ones that came up when I did a search, Capital One, who knew? We've got Google, Amazon, Bank of America, Hilton. That's a new one for me. And Amex, American Express, who knew? These are companies that care. How do we know they're companies that care? How do we know these companies care about the humans that occupy the spaces in which they employ people? How do we know? How would you answer that?
Well, I know that it's kind of the word on the street, so many things I've heard about since I've been researching bullying for so long, how these companies have a very informal workspace. Like, they have turned the idea of professionalism on its head. So these are all, like, we make rules about things, and professionalism is one thing that I always see as turning into toxicity very quickly, very easily, right?
Yes.
Oh, this is unprofessional. It's unprofessional to wear your hair like this. It's unprofessional. So anything that's with good intention, what is it? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. So professionalism is one of those things. So I've heard of workspaces where, people can lounge while they work. They don't have to sit up straight in a desk. So all of these paradigms are bent and twisted and reinvented, and it really does need to happen. And the hierarchy isn't so imposing, or do you know what I mean? It's not so apparent
rigid.
when you walk through. Yes.
And rigid.
Because we're all human and on the same plane, deserving of respect.
And deserving of fluidity, right? Thank you, Rockefeller, for giving us that 9-to-5 workday structure that we are all definitely aversive to these days. And it's such a wonderful thing to see. Having that fluid workspace, having bean chairs, having preferential and differential seating. Mm-hmm. Not everyone wants to sit at a desk and clickety-clack away at a computer all day.
And being flexible with time, like you just mentioned. We're in a time where we are so, we're in the trenches with learning all about how, fair is not equal.
Right.
So, women want equality. Well, they should be doing X, Y, Z. No. Right? And it's not women versus men. It's just we're becoming aware of ADHD and how that impacts us. We're becoming aware of highly sensitive people. Absolutely. How that impacts. We're becoming aware of so many things. And I have an ADHD brain. I'm highly sensitive. All of us have anxiety to some degree at some point, period. It's just a part of life. Meanwhile, because a lot of the things I see when I'm advocating for children, it's like, whether it's on the paper or not, ADHD. Okay, if you've got this thing, this diagnosis that is just taxing, you have ADHD. I mean, I don't need anyone to write it down, right? This is going to do a job on your brain. We know this biologically. That's the way it works. And so as we're becoming aware of these things, we cannot keep the workspace the same way. And don't get me started with the school space, but we're not talking about that right now.
We can digress later. I want to take a minute to speak to who just joined us. I'm very excited. Another esteemed colleague and friend has joined us. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kawan Willis, and I am a current counselor trainee at the Counseling Center. What else?
That's
Thank
enough.
you for joining.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us.
You're here.
We are continuing our conversation about companies that care. So we are just speaking to the how. And I wanted to piggyback Meijin on the spaces we occupy and neural atypicality. Right? Because when you speak to some of those diagnoses, we're talking about people who are atypical. And I grew up in a time, I'm a little old, you guys.
Just a little.
Just a little.
A drop.
I grew up. Yes, very seasoned. Oh, I love it. Seasoned. I grew up in a time where You as the child, as the adult, you adjust to your environment. If it's snowing, you put on some snow boots. We can't adjust things like that. However, when we enter a classroom or a workspace, we can adjust that space to account not only for neural atypicalities, but we can adjust that space to be more culturally inclusive. We can adjust that space to be more physically inclusive, right? Do you remember the time in the days where all desks had to be a foot apart and just in straight rows? And it's like, no, we have people who are in wheelchairs.
I'm not a drop old, and I don't know what you're talking about.
So yes, we can adjust our space. We can have different kinds of setups and seating so that they are more inclusive. And when we're recognizing companies that care, that's what I'm looking for. Is this space culturally sound, culturally inclusive, physically inclusive?
Is there an awareness that the reason you'd be doing something like that is because the environment creates what you are looking for?
Absolutely.
You want to create a great environment or great output from the people who work for you, who work for your company.
Oh, the old word productivity? You mean you want us to be productive in concrete walls and hard chairs? We might be more productive with bean chairs. We might be more productive with stand-up desks or bicycle desks. I mean, who ever heard of such a thing?
I just heard of it. What is that? Yes, exactly. Because, again, with advocacy at the table, and this tells us, when I sit at the table and I'm talking about a child in the education setting, it tells me what kind of world we live in every time, because that's what these teachers who have been trained in this world are bringing into the classroom. Right. And people are always saying, well, oh yes, I understand this teacher was so mean, but at least this kid is being prepared for dealing with difficult people, or we're giving all of this homework, right? And we're killing work-life balance because we want to prepare them for the real world. And so the conversation we're having right now is essentially, let's change the real world. And why should we change the real world? Because it's killing us.
Yes.
And because it's disrespectful. We're talking about autism. You've got so much giftedness that because, or if we decide we're so married to the structure that we've been practicing forever and ever and ever, hence refusing to evolve, who thinks that's not a good thing?
Yeah,
Newsflash.
I like that word married, because I'm going in my head when you said that, I'm like, I now pronounce you fluidity and mental wellness. You may kiss the bride.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't disagree with anything that you all have said. In undergrad, I participated in an externship at a local school, and within that classroom setting, I also noticed that marginalized communities and people that are within marginalized communities, they're often overlooked, and that goes to the advocacy piece that you talked about as well.
Yes.
So it was interesting to me to see it firsthand as a student, and it has piqued my interest in wanting to work more with those populations. And
so much of this speaks to awareness.
Oh, yes.
And, being on a college campus, it's like I'm just hearing screams about this, because this is where the magic happens. This is where we truly are prepared or not, and we leave, which many of us have, from our college campuses. We graduate and we're like, okay, I still have no idea.
Now what?
now what and how?
Yes.
Still.
And this can shift the conversation to what kind of education needs to be provided in our workspaces and to our employees and our colleagues in order to be able to enlighten the masses about inclusive practices and mental wellness and turning into a company that cares. What sort of education needs to happen, do you guys think?
Well, I think interestingly enough, I think that teachers need to be aware of, and faculty, professors, I think that they need to be aware of the way that people are learning nowadays, that the world is evolving and changing. A lot of students are maybe more hands-on now, maybe they may be into something else. So I think that that would be interesting to know. And then challenging educators to step outside of their comfort zones and do things a bit differently, just like Maygene said, like doing things just a little differently, not going with what you're used to or have been used to because it's worked for so long. This is a new generation.
It hasn't.
Or
Right.
Recognize
Right.
now.
Or it hasn't.
Oh,
exactly.
You don't think anyone is doing their work well? Gee, I wonder why. Look in the mirror. Yeah, and it's not a blame game, but it's
Right.
literally, it's leadership.
It's leadership and empowerment.
Yeah.
I always say you can empower teachers to say your teaching style is welcomed in this classroom. I've done that with my counseling style. My counseling style is empowered, empowered by my professor when I did my grad program, and I will forever thank him just for how he showed up for me. And as a teacher, to be empowered by your company that your teaching style is appropriate, because students are learning in tactile ways, they are learning in auditory ways, they are learning in visual ways, and they're learning in social ways, and all of those need to account for what's happening in the classroom or in workplaces and workspaces. That education needs to speak to mental wellness, needs to speak to cultural and physical inclusivity.
And on that, we're never finished learning.
Yep.
So, you know, it's such a myth. Oh, you're 18, ta-da! Never gave you an opportunity to do anything on your own, but it's your lucky day because no one's supporting you now, right? And
Now
it's
you
like,
have all the
this
freedom in the
is-
world
yes.
and don't know how to act.
Exactly. You just said it perfectly, right? It's like, welcome to the worst day of your life because,
Yes.
like, you know, oh, you're grown. Oh, grow up, grow up, grow up. You're grown. Get it together, all of this. And it's like, we're human beings. We're ever evolving. So
Yep.
these workspaces should also be ever evolving
Yep.
until they start working with robots, right?
Absolutely. And take a moment, listeners, take a moment to think about, why did you leave your last job? Because-
Windows. That was my first job, sorry.
Why'd you leave? It wasn't your coworkers, I can tell you that. Your coworkers typically are the reason why you might stay in a toxic job.
Ends.
But typically you
Yes.
leave
Yeah.
either because higher ups aren't understanding, you're not feeling seen and heard, the workplace is not productive. It doesn't invite being productive. You don't want to be productive. It's so sterile. You know, the
Yes.
lights are sterile, the seats are sterile, the desks are sterile. Sterile because COVID happened and we all need to wipe everything down. But there is also this emotional sterility that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it prevents connections from happening, which is
yeah.
our number one need. We can survive with less water, but we cannot survive outside of connection or with in this void of connection, right?
Beautiful.
So, you know, all of those things either nurture or dismantle our ability to connect with our coworkers. That's what helps me do my best work. And it's so crazy because a lot of the things that have historically not been a thing you do in the workplace, got to keep working, don't take breaks. All of those things are against what we know about brain science and the functionality of the brain, against what we know about mental health, emotional health. They are the opposites. Those are the things that allow productivity, that nurture productivity, and the not stopping ever and constantly working and not socializing. Those are the things that kill productivity and kill, degrade your work.
Absolutely.
Yep, I agree.
Again, I'll reference my age. I'll date myself here when I say there used to be a thing called water cooler talk. And everyone gets up from their desk and they go over to the water cooler and they convene and have a powwow about whatever. well, no one's visiting the water cooler anymore because we all have water bottles.
Right.
Again, the bottles are sitting on our desks. And we're just, nope, I'm going to sip right from my bottle. But we're not meeting up anymore. Everyone's going out to their car for their breaks. Where is the space and the place within our work where we say, this is a safe place where maybe I can kick my shoes off, sit crisscross applesauce, and just vibe with my colleagues?
Yeah.
I know
And
the
it's
counseling accepted and welcomed and welcomed.
Okay, that's better. Welcomed, exactly. It's not like, okay, you've been here too long. Okay, you're not getting anything done. There's less cooperation, and I think the reason again there's less cooperation is because we've grown up in a school system that looks down on us ever interacting. Even my son he's not the most social out of the three of us, and still he's like, lunch. School is easy for him, and still lunch is his favorite subject because I can breathe, I can talk, and it's not a crime. And then we carry all of that into the workspace because we've been, quote, prepared to conform to what kills us.
And I'm going to say that word. I'm going to say the word, have we been indoctrinated? Have we been indoctrinated that talking, right? Like, clutch your pearls, ladies. Talking is not okay because you get detention and you get a pink slip. And so this is learned behavior. Now when we're sitting at our desks, we're browsing Facebook on our computers individually. We're trying to be social. We're craving that social. Where are the companies that care about that? Well, we can tell you Google. Everyone has seen the pictures of Google workspaces. There's tables and wobbly chairs and bean chairs. If you come into the counseling center, we have our counseling room with differential seating. And it welcomes, just come and pop a squat and vibe with whoever is in the space at that time. It is safe and it is welcoming for you in Veterans Hall, room 100, by the way.
And another thing too, specifically when you're working with students or people, there's people around you and you're helping those people, they're affected and they're watching what we do.
Absolutely.
So if we're not interacting with each other, if we're not hanging out, if they can't see that we're being our true selves, how can they?
And it's so smart.
How can they?
It's the smartest thing that we can do as human beings is take note, read the room.
Yes, know our audience.
It's a very strong coping skill, right? Like, okay, what's not about to happen here is me being myself. Got that one. You know what I mean? Like, because this person is obviously keeping themselves at bay, keeping everyone at arm's length. Right. Every time I try to do an American phrase, it falls apart. But it's crazy. Yes. I love that.
Absolutely. Well, that is our time. We want to thank you for tuning in with Real Talk, No Cap, with Outcast OCCR, Owens Community College Radio. I'm here with my esteemed colleagues and friends. Very happy to have them here.
This is Eugene signing off. What a pleasure to speak with you today.
This is Kawan Willis. I joined a little bit late, but I am still excited to have you all join us today.
And I want to send a special thanks to Rob Thomas, our recording engineer. Thank you all for being here with us today, and catch our next podcast. It'll be on, again, Outcast OCCR, Owens Community College Radio. I'm Roy Ann Johnson, the Director of Counseling Services here at Owens Community College. And if you have topics, questions, feedback for our podcast, please send it to counselingservices@owens.edu.
This has been No Cap Real Talk.